Hello, everyone. Give me a second. Hi, everyone. We'll get 20 seconds for everyone to join, and we're gonna kick off Twitter Spaces shortly. All right, everyone. It's Immutable Axe Day with Rarible. We have a very exciting guest tonight. But first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Evgeny. I'm head of partnerships at Rarible, and we're waiting for my co-host Chad to join today. Chad, if you are around, raise your hand. I'll bring you to the stage, and we'll start introducing our guest today. Okay, we'll give Chad 1 minute to join. My apologies. Okay, Chad is here. Chad, raise your hand. I'll bring you to the stage. Perfect, and we're all set. All right, everyone. Once again, it's Immutable Axe Day with Rarible. It's a Twitter Spaces series where we will be highlighting and interviewing founders from the leading Web3 games being built on Immutable Axe and launched on the Rarible marketplace. So I want to hand it over to my co-host, Chad. Chad, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, I might need to bring him back. Chad, I've sent you a request. Are you here with me? Sorry for technical issues, guys. Invite a co-host. All right. Chad should be with us any second.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
Twitter Spaces loves to be a little glitchy here and there, so thanks so much for bearing with me. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the introduction, Eve. And just want to welcome Christoph Kim, who is the head of BD over at Ambrus Studios. Super excited to kind of dig into a lot about the game, the future roadmap, things of that nature. But real quick, just to introduce myself, my name is Chad Oda. I'm a senior partner success manager over at Immutable, and I get the pleasure of driving partnerships with a bunch of super innovative Web3 games and ecosystems. For those that aren't familiar with Immutable, we're a layer 2 scaling solution that effectively is built on top of Ethereum that enables instant trading, massive scalability, and zero gas for minting, which everyone loves. So with that being said, let's go ahead and kick off the space. So Christoph, real quick. So I saw that you've pretty much done everything in the gaming space, from investing in games, looking probably at like thousands of games for investment, to producing games. So if you can talk a little bit about your background and specifically like what led you into the Web3 space.
Thank you, Chad. And thank you, Evgeny. First of all, really nice to meet you all. And I'm really honored to be part of this great community and this Rarible slash Immutable X Day. A quick introduction to myself. My name is Chris. I am the head of business development at Ambrus Studio. A little bit of myself. I started my career as a management consultant at Bain before. And I'm also a lifetime gamer, actually, apart from my consulting and professional career. I grew up in Seoul playing video games since I was 3 years old, like since I was almost able to barely walk. I used to go to arcade game centers that used to be in every corner back in the days in Seoul. And I used to spend like 8 hours, 9 hours a day with less than $1 of amount of money, which was a great time before. So after consulting, that's why I think I went to a video game industry and became a game producer. Actually, I managed a online game called FIFA in Southeast Asia, which had about 1 million active users or more, and later became a game investor in game studios and digital entertainment sectors, more broadly speaking. I made about $200 million amount total of investment as part of a game company. I was really enjoying my job, and I got into Web3 more deeply last year when I was still at my previous work at a game company. When I found out about the concept of DAO, and I immediately fell in love with that. I did a number of project leads at a number of different DAOs. One of them is called DAO Masters, which was a service DAO to figure out like how to help other potential DAO founders to build a DAO and like to set up a tooling and stuff. And I did the project lead for a couple of seasons. I also did a kernel fellowship program, which is organized by Gitcoin. I played around with a lot of DeFi protocols, bought many NFTs, which I had lost a lot of money. In general, I had a lot of fun degenning like since early last year. And as a gamer, one thing I realized in the Web3 space was really the huge amount of hype that was going around gaming. And yet, there were too many low quality projects that either do deliver something and just disappear after token launch, or don't deliver at all, even though they have a roadmap and everything. And I was purely upset as a gamer, and because I thought there's so much we can do with Web3 and in games, and I was trying to figure that out, what I can do to make something great happen, something to change that. That's when I met Johnson. It was earlier 2022 this year. Johnson is the founder and CEO of Ambrus Studio. He was also previously a consultant at McKinsey and the former CEO of Riot Games Asia Pacific, who is known as the godfather of esports in China markets, especially. We hit off at a gallery in Taipei and talked a lot about what a game should look like in the context of Web3. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I liked him a lot and I liked the team a lot. So I decided to dive in full time in Web3 to make some great games in the space. So that's about it.
Love that, Christoph. I think you put it very eloquently that, last year there's a lot of degenning done by, I think, probably most of us in this room here, myself included, and that there was like a ton of low quality projects. And, definitely curious to understand, like, what were those initial things that you and Johnson had discussed about what we need to see in Web3 gaming? Just kind of curious.
Like, there are a lot of things. I think the first thing that we understand is, like, back then, I guess you guys all remember the play to earn was a buzzword. I mean, it still is to a certain extent, but it was almost right after the huge success of X Infinity. It was, like, to be more accurate, last year, and then it was still, like, ongoing like crazily. And, like, I was getting a lot of requests from a new startups teams that want to do a Web3 games. And because I'm from gaming industry, they were basically asking me to do an advisory service or something. So I did a number of advisors for those Web3 game projects as well. And what I realized is that many teams are not only not from gaming background, but have fairly limited amount of experience in gaming in general, as a gamer, as a user as well. Many projects that I've seen personally have been like diving into the industry to kind of get on, hop on the hype with more short term motivations and beliefs. And one thing that I was like resonating with Johnson and the team a lot was that that's not what it is. I've been in gaming industry, and like a lot of our core team members are from gaming industry as well. So we all share the same understanding that it takes really like serious long time and dedication to build a proper game. If you think about great games like League of Legends, for example, I like to use this like anecdote a lot. From the day one of League of Legends launch, it took 7 years for the game to ramp up and reach its daily user peak point. That's normally how it's going to take for you to launch a game and continuously grow it and make something great happen in this space. And it's obviously a long time, especially feels longer in the context of Web3. And I think a lot of the teams from the very beginning probably didn't really have that length of like visions when they started like their projects. Again, especially the ones that I've seen in person. So that was one thing that we clearly like hit off and like immediately agreed upon. And another thing is about how we can use Web3 elements to make games better, right? Obviously, play to earn or whichever to earn to say, now we all know that it's not really sustainable. At the end of the day, Web3 products are the same as Web2 products in a sense that it needs to be able to make money to introduce any form of incentive layers or incentive system without clear like cash flow generation power and design. It's just not sustainable and it really easily becomes Ponzi, right? So we clearly agreed on that the game needs to be able to make money. And it's the money is not important only for the sake of the project itself, but it's important to continue to build a good quality game, like from the product quality perspective as well. So I'm not sure, like again, my viewpoint doesn't have to be like the correct one, but we believe in that building a good quality game takes a long time and it needs a sustainable model. So these are the things that we agreed upon, and we immediately talked about like what we can do using Web3 elements to make game that is sustainable and just purely fun to play, not like motivating users to make money out of it.
Absolutely. Appreciate that kind of high level overview there. So kind of switching gears to Ambrus Studio's flagship game, E4C Final Salvation. And I know you kind of touched on, a couple of kind of motivators around the vision, but I know another part of the vision is you want to kind of drive a positive influence for the environmental conditions of the world. So can you kind of talk about, that component about the game?
Thanks a lot for asking. Part of the reason the Johnson and the team started this project is to show people that video games can actually serve good cause. And how we want to do that is to create positive and lasting impact to climate change and climate actions. Roughly speaking, 4 directions. Or the first is to bringing awareness. Video games is an interesting product from tech industry perspective. It's consumer tech is very visual by nature, and it creates the strongest stickiness and engagement among its users, among all the other different type of products in tech industry. And we want to leverage these characteristics and bring more awareness to the climate change issues. Our team is making scientific research to write our worldview and backstories of each characters, and how we're gonna design in-game effects, like map effects and everything to create like each character's storyline and create concept arts and so on. And we will be deploying these stories and visual elements within the game's worldview and story to reflect what it could look like after the continuous global warming, like how devastated it will look visually. And our users can naturally see like how it's going to look like, how it's going to feel like. And they're going to be playing like on behalf like of in-game playable characters, and each of these characters will have a different motivation, different like association that they're part of, and like they're going to be kind of emerging into the stories of each character. So that's how we want to make our users feel that, okay, this is actually a serious issue and how there's this thing going on, right? So that's the first pillar. The second is about community actions. Well-designed video games can encourage users to do certain actions. You've probably done like games and then seen like daily or weekly quest or like some sort of homework when you play games. And we can introduce some of these directly related to helping climate actions. This is going to be powerful also because we know that modern gamers are paying more and more attention to the climate change issues as well. According to the study done by Yale University earlier this year, actually, it says 70% of gamers is worried about global warming, actually. And about 55% of them are thinking that gaming industry should act more to address global warming issues. And 50% of those gamers are willing to make actual donations or make action, for example, to participate in volunteer work and so on. So these gamers have good wills and ready to act on it, and then there are a growing number of them. All they need is just someone to give example of what can they actually do, and give a small nudge towards that direction. So video game is just, I think, a great format of product to be able to do that. So that's a second pillar. The third one is forming an alliance. As a team, we think we're at an interesting intersection of traditional gaming and esports and climate change and Web3. This has allowed us to partner with some really cool projects and individuals from a variety of sectors. For example, one of our strong supporters and NFT holders is Paris Hilton. And she wouldn't normally invest in like games or buy NFTs, but she has strong interest in climate change actions, and she decided to become our backer for our NFT projects. She actually tweeted about like one of our earlier NFT launches, and it was helpful to create hypes as well. And we're also working with interesting Web3 projects that are not NFT communities or like game companies, but those Web3 projects that are about climate change projects. For example, we're working with Climate, who is building institutional grade climate data and APIs for on chain projects. And we think as a game developer, we can, in the long term, work with these partners to make our games more like not only interesting but based out of like actual like data, and then we can create more like on-chain, in-game or out of the game events and tasks for our users as well. So we can provide really interesting benefits to these Web3 like climate partners, which is large scale audience and use case, like expanded use cases, because we're like not refi, but we're like really building a game. We'll be continuously working with more of these partners to build an alliance across Web 2 and Web 3 to make positive impact. Climate change related projects or actions, please feel free to DM us and to let us know. And lastly, but not least, we're ready to make financial supports to the climate change ecosystem. As I mentioned earlier, part of the reason we think like X to earn is not sustainable is because a lot of projects lack the clear sustainable business model. And with that, we plan to figure out a business model to monetize the game product. And our team will make certain percentage of donations of the profits, future profits generated from the game to climate causes and climate actions. So this is probably one of the like more straightforward and simple way to make like positive impact. So these are the directions that we have in mind to like become that serve good cause.
Wow, I think that's just incredibly powerful. Just using the modality of gaming to, power positive, climate change initiatives. I don't think I've heard of any game that is really leveraging that vision to do so. So I think that's awesome. So kind of now that we've talked about the vision, for people that are just joining, just hearing about E4C for the first time, can you give us an overview of the game? I know that like 2 games have been announced so far. There's also something called the E4C verse. So can you kind of give people kind of an overview of some of those topics?
Oh yeah, sure. So as Chad just mentioned, we have multiple projects that have like the same name that's called E4C. E4C stands for Earth 4 degrees Celsius. So it reflects hypothetical worldview that we have in our universe, where continued global warming like results in the Earth average surface, the temperature rise up by 4 degrees Celsius, which is really devastating. And we have main game, which is an esports game that's called E4C Final Salvation. This is the main project that we're working on, which is a esports MOBA game with a completely mobile device native design and Web3 tailored design. It will be a free-to-play game, nothing pay to win and no pay to earn. It's going to be an esports game, similar to the mixture of games like Dota 2 or League of Legends, plus more mobile-friendly gameplay like auto chess or Hearthstone kind of strategic elements in the gameplay. We're aiming to become the first true esports game for the large audience in Web3. We're actually targeting to bring tens of millions of gamers in terms of daily active users from across the globe, from Web 2 to Web 3. The mobile gameplay, as I mentioned, we will change a lot of these core gameplay to make it faster, more intensive, like fighting experience, to make the per session time shorter to make it more suitable for mobile device. And not only that, the gameplay will become like user interface will become actually pretty different experience from the mobile games that people are more used to. And our next level vision is to introduce like game modding or editing kind of features like map editor tools you can think of to enable co-creation and really enabling users to be a game content playable content creator. And we want to evolve into a open metaverse like Roblox. And like I mentioned, like we have coupled our game with like climate change actions and a concept. So this is going to be a main game, esports game on a mobile device. There is E4C Fallen Arena, which is the first mini game that we launched earlier this year, September 20th. This is a PC-based game. It's a really casual game. It's a multiplayer PvP game. The gameplay is top view, kind of similar to brawler games. It's a pure bonus, like a gift to our community to kind of showcase how their NFTs and characters will look like in a game where they can control it, like move it, and have fun. This game is available for download. It's in the beta right now. You can visit our official website to play that. This game is completely separate game from the E4C Final Salvation, but we just decided to launch this game because with the amount of effort that we needed, which was not that a lot, we thought this can give our community members something more to like play with and hang around, like when they buy our NFTs and then support our project. And lastly, there's an NFT project going on, E4C Rangers. There are like different tiers and like different structure, which I think I can go deeper later on during this space. But this NFT is a PFP NFT, which has really differentiated values and utilities to its holders, really limited count. So these are the things that we're working on within the E4C universe.
Awesome. Appreciate that introduction to the game, Christoph. For anyone just joining right now, incredibly bullish on what Ambrus Studios is making. For people that are just kind of learning about it, founder was the head of Riot Games in China, leading League of Legends. And just to give everyone a picture, 100 million people play League of Legends monthly, right? So I think this team can really propel Web3 gaming to the next hurdle here. And that being said, I know that Johnson was kind of the father of China esports. So talk to us about who is this game built for? Like esports, I know it's on mobile. Like who is the ideal player base for this game?
It's basically a mobile game. It's a free-to-play game. So it's mostly we're thinking about our target audience as a traditional mobile gamer. There are a lot of mobile-only game users outside of North America. It's interesting how like different regions have different sort of market conditions in terms of gaming. North America, especially United States, there are more console gamers and PC gamers for sure. But if you go outside to go to Asia, especially like Southeast Asia or South Asia, like India, a lot of households don't really have access to gaming consoles or gaming PCs. So in terms of the market size, sheer market size, mobile game is literally the largest in the global gaming industry, much bigger than PC and console. And a lot of these gamers in these regions, of course, like to play free to play games. There are different genres, but esports is interesting because it's all about not only playing fun gameplay, but it's about kind of having an interaction within your social community. You know, you have your peer friends within your group, and it's about competition, like who gets better and who gets worse. So, esports on mobile device has become a really popular like social phenomena like that goes beyond just like games within a lot of regions in these markets. So what we're trying to capture are these population with like esports, where there are number of mobile devices that are regionally popular. There's no truly global winner, and we think it's because the gameplay design that of those esports games in the market right now are not tailored towards mobile experience. So we want to become the first games, like a proper game, to serve that demand and capture that audience. So yeah, mobile and esports and free to play.
Awesome. Just one more question to kind of talking about the games before we start having a chat about the NFTs and the integration and utility in the games. Out of all the game mechanics, which ones are you most excited to have players experience? Like, I know that the whole team has been playing the game live on live streams. Like, what mechanic of the game are you most excited about?
This is a really broad question. um, I don't know. We're actually excited about literally everything because, like, you know, making a game is like making an entire world, and it's really literally the baby. And unlike other many other different type of tech products, like this one is like every single detail like is really critical. For example, like the how it feels to move around your characters on the screen, like the speed and the pace, and if those like walking steps match the movement and everything. I'm sure if you've been like involved in game dev like process, you would understand like how every single detail like means a lot to you, right? um as I mentioned earlier, one of the core differentiation that we have in the game design is really the gameplay, like user interface and like the gameplay itself. I'm just using this like word MOBA or strategy to simplify the concept and then try to make it easy to communicate, to convey the ideas. But it will be really a genre defining kind of gameplay in a sense. Of course, games will have like map, and there's going to be lane, towers, and minions, like usual elements that you expect in like other mobile games. But apart from that, the gameplay will be really different. I cannot disclose that too much because the gameplay design is like very important and confidential to our differentiation. There will be less micro control element because it's a mobile device game. There will be more strategic elements, especially when users try to go into a combat, like a battle against like their enemies. The control and the user interface will feel very different, and how you need to use like strategy to think about maximizing, okay, like this is going to be the combination of skills that I'm going to use to either maximize my dealing or like counterattack my enemy. These like things will be very different, and we're just in general very looking forward to getting our first feedback at the upcoming alpha testing early next year. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm personally very excited about.
Absolutely. Appreciate what you could share. I know I'm certainly excited about whenever there's a open opportunity to play the game. Certainly looking forward to that. So kind of switching gears a little bit, and I know you kind of mentioned, some of the utility around NFTs, but if you can kind of talk about more specifically, what is E4C's approach to NFTs? How do you envision like the existing integration into the game, and like where do you kind of see the long-term value here?
Thanks for a great question. We started E4C Rangers NFT project, the PFP project, as the first sort of taste of E4C universe, and also like to offer some really differentiated utility and benefits to NFT holders. And it's really the token of our appreciation for those early supporters and like kind of OG members of our community. Just to like give people a like outlook of how it looks like. First of all, there will be 7 characters as the Genesis collections of E4C Rangers. Each one of them have rich background stories, as I mentioned earlier, and share like complete worldview setting of the game. And some like they will be associated with different parties, and each one of them will have really top-notch quality of arts as well. Like we try to differentiate every single aspect of our NFT design as much as possible. The holders will receive airdrops of in-game champions and skins, like unique skins for only available for NFT holders. And there will be some differentiated benefits like in-game IP ownership in the form of dividends or somewhat like of each corresponding champions from the future profits generated from each corresponding champions over the course of certain time after the game launches. There are 3 editions for each character um, that has different degrees of benefits. We call it Ultimate Edition, Gold Edition, and Rangers Edition. So Ultimate is the highest tier in general. And how we are like deploying these, like distributing these, is also we trying to differentiate it. The ultimate tier, the starting price was 6.5 Ethereum. It was done by English auction on OpenSea. The each auction goes on for 7 days. The previous one that we had, which was in July, the starting price was 6.5 Ethereum. The highest price was bidding price was 19 Ethereum. I think nowadays the floor price for the first batch is around 12 ETH each. And the holder of this ultimate tier NFT, which is really limited count, there are only 15 of them per each character, and they'll get like total 10% of shared IP ownership, IP dividend ownership among holders. And each one of these 15 NFTs are unique one-of-one designs. So this is the higher tier. The gold edition and the ranger editions also hold similar structure of benefits, but probably lower degree of the benefit in terms of structure. And there are 450 NFTs for gold and 646 NFTs for rangers. So that's how it's structured, and it's going to be basically the use for the champion permanently, and it's gonna get like unique in-game skins and perhaps in-game items or tokens, and some IP ownership. So these are the utilities that we try to differentiate from many other different GameFi projects.
Perfect. Appreciate you giving us the overview of the NFT structure, utility, kind of like where you intend to integrate them into the game. Kind of a bigger picture question here, I think is probably on the minds of most folks in Web3 and, those people from Web2 that are kind of looking at Web3. What is Ambrus Studio approach to attracting Web2 players into Web3?
This is really important question to us because like our goal is to become one of the largest DAU game in the entire space, and then we can only achieve this by bringing more gamers, traditional gamers in the world of Web2 to Web3. And there are a couple of things that we think are really important to do that. The first thing is really the free-to-play element. A lot of previous Web3 games that we've seen require users to buy NFTs to even start a game, and some of these NFTs used to be really costly. And we are going to be a complete free-to-play. Even if users don't have like any NFTs, they're still going to be able to access to the core game loop, and like they don't need to pay for money at all to play the game. Even if they buy skins, which are going to be NFTs, they're purely cosmetic items. There will not be any like game stats like bonus or anything associated with it. So this is one really important thing that's really in general very important to traditional gamers as well, not only like in Web3. Second thing is creating seamless experience, especially when we think about Web2 gamers. there are a lot of entry barriers for them to come into Web3. Like they don't know what's wallet, or even know they probably haven't used it for a while. Even if the ones that we like, one of us, it's troublesome to always like connect, like download like Chrome extension and like log on and then do the signing and then goes back and forth, like go out of the game and then come back into the game. Like this is really not the ideal user experience. So we want to make the game, especially the onboarding experience, as seamless as possible. So what it means is that new users will not need to have a Web3 wallet to start a game. They can start game by creating an account and then just play the game as usual. So they don't see any difference when they first get on board to the game. And when they make progress within the game, we plan to deploy tutorials that are carefully designed to give more than enough explanation about, hey, you got your first like skin after this tutorial. Do you want to like mint it? Do you want to convert? Do you want to change it to your like on-chain asset? And then we're going to give explanation. What is NFT? What is on-chain asset? What does it mean to mint my in-game item onto like on-chain asset? And what can I do with it, right? And then how to create a wallet, and then like how to trade it, blah blah, all of these things. We are going to use tutorial really familiar format to the traditional gamers to give them sort of like step-by-step explanations and education. So that's another thing that we're thinking about. And lastly, we as a game, as a product, we need to give more reason or a nudge to allow users to try this like new feature, right? Like Web3 features. For example, we can like kind of give them a pop-up or tutorial about like in-demand mint of certain like in-game highlights, like of some like short form like gameplay videos, or like some special collectible tokens within the game. They can collect and maybe compose it on top of their like future skin NFTs, for example, so that they just in general have more reason to try this feature and then get used to it, right? At the end of the day, we think one of the biggest challenges that Web3 in general faces is the mass adoption. And we think game as a product format is in its best position to tackle this like problem in the most like user-friendly way, in a sense.
Thanks, Christoph. Really appreciate that answer. I think it's a hard problem everyone's trying to solve. So certainly looking forward to seeing how Ambrus Studios can help solve that issue. So I'm going to pass this back to Yevgeny, who I think is going to kick off some Q&A and maybe some other questions here.
Yes, let's do it. So, Chris, thank you so much for answering all the questions today. We'll probably have a few more from the audience. So, guys, if you want to ask anything about Ambrus Studio or the games they're building, please raise your hand and I'll bring you to the stage. Just make sure that this is a Web3 gaming related question and you're not shilling your own projects, because that's what a lot of people tend to do. And while people are thinking about the questions they want to ask, I have one on immutable acts. So can you briefly give us some context on why you decided to go with IMX and like what was important in working or when picking the partner?
Of course, sure. Thank you for the question. I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, we are putting the player experience everything when we're building our game, like especially when it comes to onboarding experience or small transaction experience, like every day that users will face is really important to like making the seamless experience. And in terms of that, we really had three like top criteria when we thought about choosing the network partners. Number one was seamless experience, like fast, like transaction speed. Not only that, in terms of like how the ecosystem and infrastructure is built, needs to be really seamless for players, and then next, like for developers. The second thing is transaction fee. We didn't want to raise like really high transaction fee, which is going to be a high entry barrier to our users. So it needed to be like as low as possible. That was the second thing we thought about. And lastly, it was really just in general the amount of stuff they were able to expect from the network partners. We are a team of experienced traditional game industry, like from more Web 2 rather than Web 3. We do have like blockchain engineer, really experienced like blockchain engineer teams. But at the end of the day, what we learned a lot after we like started this project in the Web3 space is that nothing can be done like in our team, and nobody really has a clear answer to a lot of questions because we're so early. So we need to work together as a team, whatever we do, and the amount of support and the readiness was another thing that we had to consider. So in terms of these three criteria, we reviewed like different options, but a Mutable X team was really ready, most ready to provide what we needed in terms of good experience for users and transaction speed and transaction fees and the amount of support and then readiness of the entire ecosystem and infrastructure.
Yeah, I think we share the same sentiment and love towards Immutable X. So yeah, once again, guys, if you want to ask any questions, it's your time right now. We have, I think, a very shy audience today, so I haven't seen any hands. We'll give 5 more seconds. If there will be no questions, we'll start wrapping up today's Twitter Spaces.
Why is it? Is it normally there are questions?
Normally there are questions. Yeah.
Did I do something wrong or did I explain too well?
Yeah, I think you covered everything. People just like, okay, we get it. Okay. Yeah, there are no questions. All right. Then this is perfect time to wrap up. So first of all, I want to thank you, Christopher, for joining us today. Thanks for covering all things Web3 gaming and Ambrus Studio. I think right now we have a very clear understanding of what you guys are working on. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Likewise, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for having me with this like great community, and thank you so much for a great question, Evgeny and then Chad. And looking forward to working together on more great things in the future.
Absolutely. And maybe one last question from my side, like where people can find you or your team from Ambrus Studio if they have questions.
Of course, number of things. For me, I am active on Twitter and Telegram and then Discord. My Twitter is Kim_Christoph. So happy to get any DMs if you guys have any questions. You can also follow our studio official Twitter, which is Ambrus Studio without space. And you can also find our Discord, official Discord on our Twitter, and all our team members are always like ready, and then we actually like maintain really tight relationship with our community members. We not only just like chit to the chit chat, we also play games like bi-weekly or something to do in-game in-community tournaments and stuff. So feel free to drop by and then join us. We're always going to be happy and then welcoming to all of you.
This is awesome. So everyone, go follow Ambrus Studios social handles, join Discord, go check out their NFT collection on Rarible. Chad, thank you so much for running Twitter Spaces today, for your insightful questions. You rock, as always.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Christoph, Evgeny, always a pleasure, and looking forward to the next one here.
Thank you, guys.
Right. Thank you, everyone. That's a wrap.
Bye.